Jide Ogunsanwo joins us next. He's our data and information analyst. Thank you for coming on this morning, Jide. Well, we're focusing on inflation. Well, yes, indeed, it's double digit. But yes, we see that it rose from 11.23% from the month of June 2018. But if you compare that to 11.61 in the month of May, well, not where we exactly need to be at the moment. But you've been digging into this. How does this compare with what you've seen?
So you're right. We're not where we want to be. But we can see that the government has made some good progress with trying to stabilize inflation compared to what it was about 2 years ago. But more than the cost of inflation, Chamberlain, there are three other costs that are more important than inflation that we should talk about. The first is the rising cost of trust. Then we look at the rising cost of living and then the rising cost of food. And what do I mean by the rising cost of trust? Exactly what we've seen in the last 5 minutes. The issue is we still haven't placed a premium on how much trust is costing us in this economy. And there are three, perhaps four ways to look at it. Now, I'll give myself as an example. You know, then, several years when I was back in school in Nyota, I realized that the best way to get more money from my dad then was to inflate the price. Because I always knew that even though he used to give me 3,000 naira per month, I knew that if I went to meet this man to say I needed 3,000 naira, I wasn't going to get 3,000 naira. He was going to give me a bit less. And so, because I didn't trust him to give me exactly how much I needed, I took the price up.
Have you confessed your sins to him?
I mean, he might be listening to him now. He might be watching.
So that's the cost of trust. And it happens if we look at it, how many students do that, and even how many families and wives do that, knowing that as a wife, if you go meet your husband to say you need only 5,000 naira, you probably wouldn't get it. And so that cost of trust, indeed, cost us a lot of money. In business, it also applies. When a businessman wants to get a deal, wants to get a contract, he doesn't trust that the company will pay him as at when they've said they will pay him. And so he over-invoices. He understands that whatever amount he collects, he will also have to manage internal relationships. That is the cost of trust. It is more important than the cost of inflation. In the National Assembly today, the National Assembly has refused to open one word, Chamberlain, cost of trust. The Senate President doesn't trust what the APC chairman, who was his former friend, will do.
Even though they say, well, we'll have a fixed date, but they're going back and forth on that one. But at the moment, they haven't.
But again, the rising cost of trust. And so, we often don't believe that this cost impacts the welfare and the price of goods, but it does. Because when the National Assembly doesn't sit to discuss pending issues, there's a delay. And indeed, we know that with delays comes the cost of time. Prices don't come down. There are procurement delays.
Does that ultimately have an effect on our lives?
Oh, yes, it does.
The quality of our lives?
Because it simply means we then have to perhaps even budget more. More resources have to go into things that were left unattended to because prices have gone up, and then the government has less resources to pump into other more important areas. And yes, these things add up. The government also, the executive also have their own issues when it comes to cost of trust. You hear the word approval process. That is the cost of trust. In simple terms, when you hear approval process...
You don't think it's just about the procedure?
Nah, Chamberlain. It's a fancy name for bottlenecks. And so when things are slow, it impacts the lives of everybody. When procedures and policies are put in place, it's because people don't trust each other. If we were to look at the numbers, a decade and a half ago when President Obasanjo, 6 months to his re-election, October 2002, year-on-year inflation was 5.4%. Again, there was a lot of mistrust in that government. Let's fast forward 6 months to the 2015 election. Inflation had gone up. It was now 8.3%. By now 6 months to this election, inflation again 11%. So here's what I mean. Even though cost of inflation, we need to ensure that we keep finding a way to ensure that the cost of inflation doesn't rise as much. It is more important for us to keep an eye and for us to start measuring how much trust and indeed mistrust cost us. You perhaps will have heard of what had happened at Ojuelegba 20 years ago when a 10-story building was on fire. And then the firemen quickly found a blanket, a big blanket, and held it and told the man on the 10th floor to jump down. And you know what his reply was? I don't trust you. Put the blanket on the ground. But we need to trust because there's a cost of trust and the cost affects everyone. The second is for us to now look at the cost of living, which is what Nigerians are concerned about. And just this week, the Economist Intelligence Unit, which is a very recognized and trustworthy brand, they've been doing research and analysis for over 7 decades. What did they say about Nigeria this week? They said Nigeria is among the 3 worst cities to live in.
We'll talk about that a little more when we return from the break. Join us again. All right, welcome back, Jide. You're talking about this global livability index, and those who live in Lagos may say, whoa, how come?
Oh, yes, because, again, the first 3 most livable cities which the Economist Intelligence Unit say people should look out for, Austria, Australia, and Osaka in Japan. But among the worst 3, based on their survey, Syria, Bangladesh, and Lagos. And the headache is, Lagos is the bride, the beautiful bride of Nigeria. Yet, a survey shows Lagos is among the worst 3 to live in. Our Lagos, the Lagos everybody wants to come to blow. So the challenge is, again, the cost of life, we need to pay more attention to it. And again, let's be more specific, Chamberlain. Let's look at international aircrafts that land at the Murtala Mohammed Airport within the last 3 years. 2015, the exact figure, 15,145 aircraft arrived in Lagos. 2016, the figure had declined. We didn't have 15,000 aircraft landing anymore in Lagos, just a bit over 14,000. What about last year? Again, below 14,000. The exact numbers from FAN, 13,844. So in simple terms, in the last 3 years, fewer international aircrafts are coming into Nigeria. How does this affect the price of goods? Oh yes, it simply means less foreigners, less tourists are bringing in dollars. And we know there's a strong correlation between the funds available, the FX funds available in dollars, and how prices rise. And so we can see how all of this is correlated. We can see a lot of instability as well in the foreign exchange.
Even the CBN's recent statement said they've been able to stabilize this at the 306 because of their interventions.
Yes, but again, stability in the short term. Let's look at the long-term view. When this whole democratic journey started in 1999, it was 95 naira to $1. Consistently, we've seen it getting worse. 128, 155 by 2011, 197 by 2015 to 306. If we follow these projections, it's quite easy to forecast what the exchange rate will be in the next 4 years. Is the CBN making a lot of hard work to ensure this stabilizes? Oh yes, they are. Is the government trying to ensure that the challenges faced by previous governments are being managed? Oh yes, they are. But more importantly, Nigerians want to ensure that food is more available. And the evidence today shows that prices of food are rising faster than the prices of several other household items. Nigerians, families are contributing less to the economy. As of 2013, Nigerian families contributed 67% to GDP. In the last 4 years, that has declined. In simple terms, Nigerian families are getting weaker. But again, even though cost of inflation needs to be managed. We need to think about it in more creative ways. How do we ensure we manage the rising cost of trust? And in the final analysis, you remember what Ronald Reagan said, trust, but verify.
Food for thought. Jide Ogunsanwo, our data and information analyst, thank you for coming on this morning. And that is the show today. What a week it's been. Thank you all for watching. We'll see you next time. I'm Chamberlain Uso.